Kuf Aleph Amud Aleph. But we'll start again from Daf Kuf Amud Beis to get us right into the sugya of Kiddush B'Makom Seudah. That's what we're going to talk about. Here we go. So the Gemara started on Daf Kuf Amud Beis. Oisam b'nei Adam shekitchu beis hakneses. Those people who make Kiddush in shul. The Rashbam says, like when the Chazan makes Kiddush in shul. The Shliach Tzir makes Kiddush on Friday night and on Yantif in the Beis HaKnesses. So he says, Amar Rav Yidayayin Yatsu, Lo Yatsu, I'm sorry, Yidayayin Lo Yatsu. He's not Yotze. If he's going to go home now, he's going to have to make a new Brei Priyagofen. But Yidei Kiddush Yatsu, but he fulfilled his mitzvah of Kiddush. But they fulfilled their mitzvah of Kiddush. Whoever heard the Kiddush in shul fulfilled their mitzvah of Kiddush. Ushmuel says, Av Yidei Kiddush Lo Yatsu. Not only do you have to make another Brei Priyagofen when you get home, because Shinei Makam, because if you change the place where you are, you're gonna have to make a new bracha. So, but you weren't even Yotze Kiddush, because the Gemara is going to explain, because he holds Kiddush needs to be B'Makom Seudah, and you're not eating in shul, so you're not fulfilling the mitzvah of you didn't fulfill the mitzvah of Kiddush. So the Gemara is like, 1 second. El Rav, according to Rav, who says that you were Yotze Kiddush in shul, so Lamalei LeKedusha B'Beisei. Why are you going home making? Samara answers, in order to be mitzi his sons and his household in the mitzvah of Kiddush. You already yotzi your mitzvah there. You already yotzi your mitzvah. So why are you able to say Kiddush again? The Rosh Hashanah tells us, Apal Pisha Yotza mitzi. Even though you already yotzi your mitzvah, you still are able to be mitzi somebody else in their mitzvah. I think when it says that's only for birchas hamitzvahs, not for birchas hanenin. You're not supposed to be mitzi somebody on a birchas hanenin. So the Rush says, but over here, because the Brei Priyagofen is part of Kiddush, so it takes on like the chiyuv of Kiddush, and therefore you can be mitzi even in the birchas hanenin. Okay, that is why Rav says to make Kiddush, why people make Kiddush at home, even though they already fulfilled their obligation in shul. Ushmuel. But according to Shmuel, who says you weren't yotzi your mitzvah of Kiddush when you make Kiddush in shul, so why are you making Kiddush in shul? Answers the Gemara, la'afuke archim yidei chavasan, in order to help the archim, the guests, fulfill their obligation. The achlu v'shasu v'ganu b'bei kanishta, because they would eat and they would drink and they would sleep in shul. The question you're asking is, why don't they make the Kiddush themselves? Good kasha. Somebody asked the kasha, and I forgot who it was, but the answer was because of B'Reiv Am Hadras Melech. The same reason why by Litvisha Chevra, we have one person make Kiddush on Friday night and everybody else is Yotze. Why? Why not have everybody make their own Kiddush, like good Chassidish Yidden do? I didn't mean the good Chassidish. I'm just saying that what other people do, they go around al tzchinuch, everybody makes Kiddush. But the reason why you'd have one person making Kiddush Friday night and being mitzi everybody else, we say mitzvah bayis and v'shluchai, do it yourself, make your own Kiddush. So the reason for that is because b'reivam hadras melech. There's an in when you're being mitzi people to have one person do it and everybody be yotze. So that was the Shliach Tzibra. That was part of the, you need to hear someone kvetch. You're making Kiddush in shul, so they would have the Chazan make Kiddush. That's what Rashbam said. That was the minute the Shliach Tzibra made Kiddush. So I don't get that. That was just it's a good heart, but that was that's the answer. Now, once we mentioned this, eating and drinking in shul, that's blasphemous. How could you eat and drink and sleep in shul? Tesis, third tesis down here. Tesis is they said, the Gemara Megillah says, but the Knesiyas ain oichlin ben, ve'ain shaisen ben. You're not allowed to eat and drink in shul. What's that? Correct, but this is a Beis HaKnesses. They davened in. They didn't daven in the Beis HaKnesses. They davened in shul. They make Kiddush in shuls. How could they eat in shul? That says this is a kasha. So he says, Teza asks the kasha on his kasha. Avagav dachila v'shtia shel mitzvah mutter. If it's an achila and shtia of a mitzvah, it would be permitted to eat and drink in shul. Kedarim b'Yerushalmi. Shayu oichlin sham b'kiddush hachodesh. You remember the stories, when they went to be makadosh hachodesh, so they invited everybody in. They wanted all the shluchim to come, and they had a big seudah for them because they wanted people coming, even on Shabbos. Right? They made big seudah for them, and there they ate and drank in shul. So he said, because I was an achila and shtia shel mitzvah somehow. Not sure, b'kiddush hachodesh. The gam ha'achshav negin lishtais kais havdalu bris milah. And we also, he said, he's asking, how could you drink if you made a bris in shul? How could you drink the wine? You're not allowed to drink in shul. Have you made havdalah in shul? How could you drink? So the teretz is because that's a mitzvah. Mitzvah. But if it's not a mitzvah, which he's assuming the Seudah Shabbos is, v'sheina, and for sure sleeping aser, that's for sure aser. Now, why would he hold that Seudah Shabbos is not a mitzvah? And some Rishonim answer that. The reason why they're able to eat in shul is because Seudah Shabbos is a mitzvah. So the Dvar Yaakov is bringing, I don't know if he said it himself, he brought down from somebody else. He says, Glumdish Shavart. Because Taisus holds that what's the mitzvah? There's no mitzvah to eat on Shabbos. The mitzvah is Einig Shabbos. You can fulfill that mitzvah of Einig Shabbos through eating. But it's not a mitzvah to eat. When there's a mitzvah to eat, that's when the achila itself is a mitzvah, so then that would be mat you to eat in shul. But when the achila itself is not a mitzvah, it's just a way to fulfill a mitzvah, so then maybe that's like a lumdisha. One more time? Are they a mitzvah according to Taisus? Taisus says they're not a mitzvah. So we're trying to figure out why. How can you hold it that they're not a mitzvah? The Seudah Shabbos is a mitzvah. Because it's a mitzvah in Shabbos. So maybe maybe it's the Birchas Abraham. He says that he's differentiating between eating matzah, for instance. The eating is the mitzvah, right? Seudah Shabbos is a way you can fulfill the mitzvah of Einig Shabbos. Eating a carbon is an achilas mitzvah, right? You make a bracha on the achila, right? But Einig Shabbos is the mitzvah. And there are a lot of ways you can fulfill that mitzvah. Shina, you can sleep, is also a way to fulfill the mitzvah. But the achila itself is not the mitzvah. That's the lumdus that he wants to say. Other Rishonim disagree. The other Rishonim hold no. Seudah Shabbos is a mitzvah. That's why you're allowed to eat in shul.
You make a bracha on Einig Shabbos according to him?
No. That's his point.
It's not a mitzvah to eat, but the mitzvah of Einig Shabbos.
Correct.
So how do you fulfill that mitzvah?
You can fulfill it, and you can fulfill it by sleeping. Al Einig Shabbos, we do not. It's a good shayla. Why don't we make a bracha on Einig Shabbos on that mitzvah? It could be because there's many ways to do it. So it doesn't have a specific way to do it. So it doesn't have. It's like the mitzvah of chesed. There's no mitzvah on chesed. There's no bracha on chesed. That's for tzedakah, but maybe other chesadim you could do. Maybe, but I'm wondering. I don't know this has effect. Maybe when there's many ways to fulfill a mitzvah, and there's no specific way to do it, then we don't make a bracha. That's the mitzvah. We don't. It's not too vague. Maybe I don't know. I made that up.
So I feel
Okay.
Like to be done. Can you want to actually have the whole seder there? Because not everything is.
Well, anything you're going to drink is alakaisis, and you're going to eat the achilas ma'eh, the rest of the Seudah. I don't know. That's a good show. That would be some cheshamtif. Also, there's different ways to fulfill it. I don't know if you can do the rest of the Seudah. I don't know. But they don't know if they had seder and shul. But anyway, Taisus holds that eating the Seudah of Shabbos wouldn't be considered, is not enough of a mitzvah. Other Rishonim argue. So he's got a kasha. And furthermore, and even if you hold that it is a mitzvah, but how could you sleep? The Gemara says, V'ganu, they slept in shul. How could you sleep in shul? So maybe that'd be the same teretz. What happened? No, it's a both einig, but it's not. But in order to be called a achila shel mitzvah, it needs to be that the achila itself is the mitzvah. So I'm saying that would answer. But you're right. Meaning, but if you hold ad kama, you hold that eating as a mitzvah, you would hold sleeping as a mitzvah also. So that would answer that kasha. Good. I didn't say that. It's a good point. Okay. Good. Now. Okay, he learned probably, Now Taisus brings up another issue that other Rishonim answer. Another teretz says, what do you mean? the Bate Knessia Shebebavel were made on a Tanai. So you on the Tanai is that they don't have the same Kedusha like in Eretz Yisrael. We do other things with the shuls. So that's another teretz that the Rishonim give. Tez doesn't like that one. Even in Bavel, you couldn't eat in shul. The Kamar Hasam, Ravina V'Rav Adabar Havashla, who you rate the Kanas Beis HaKnesses Ibnei Geshamim. It started to rain, and they didn't want to come into shul, and they were in Bavel. The only their excuse was to go into shul was because if you're learning, you need to have a clear head. You're going to get wet. It's not going to be good for the learning, so they allowed them to go into shul. But otherwise, they wouldn't go stam into shul. Okay. The good Taisa says, "V'hata kamar hasan batik nesiya shel bavel al tanai asuyin." The mice they were built on a tanai. And the tanai was that they don't have the same kedusha like a basic nesses in Eretz Yisrael. Taisa holds that's only la'acha sheyichravu. Once the shul goes defunct, so you could sell it for something else. That's what the tanai helps. But as long as the shul is functioning, you can't use it for anything else. Shein negam kedusha after they're destroyed. Okay, the Taisa has a big problem. He doesn't like any of the terutzim of the Rishonim. So he's stuck. How could these people be eating and drinking and sleeping in shul to Archim? Oh, another teretz is that for Achnas Archim, you could have them eat and drink in shul. For Archim, they could eat it. That's what they could do in shul. Doesn't look any of this. So Taisa says V'Yishlemer the lav dafka bebei kinishta. It doesn't mean that they were in the shul. It means that the shul had other rooms. Al chadarm shayu smuchim lebeis hakneses pari bei kinishta. The rooms next to the shul were also called the shul. Umisham hayu shaymim kiddush. So they were already set up there, ready to eat, and they would hear the kiddush. So they left shul a little early. They got their seats at their table. The chazan would make kiddush in the shul, and then they'd start eating. Umisham hayu shaymim kiddush. Okay, that's what he says. First teretz. Now on this we have a little bit of a problem. 1 second. We're going to see in a second. There's an issue. You couldn't make kiddush. The chazan who made kiddush in shul wasn't allowed to walk home and be yotze kiddush. We say that's like a shini makom. We don't call that the Makom Seudah. That's not a Makom Seudah. So going from the shul to the side room is okay. You can make kiddush in shul and then go to a different room. No, we're saying that they were already in the other room. Yeah. But let me ask you, if the chazan himself was eating in shul and he made kiddush in the shul and he walked to the room, is that going to be a shina makom? Will that be called B'Makom Seudah? Maybe.
Something you didn't have in mind?
Maybe not. Assuming he didn't have in mind, and maybe mind won't help, or we'll see in a second that it will. But in this teretz, he's assuming that.
How does it help the Archim?
That's the kasha. How does it help the Archim? They're making kiddush in one room and having the Seudah in the other room.
Tesis answer. He basically says it's all called the basic nesses, even though there are separate rooms. So
Okay.
One thing.
Okay, I hear that. Maybe that would be good. Okay, we'd call it maybe. We'll see if that works. We're going to talk about specific rooms in a moment, but let's assume that it's considered a shini makom. If you remember, on Sunday we said some geschmack array from the Chazon Ish. Remember the Chazon Ish? He wanted to know how Shemei Ka'ina works. Shemei Ka'ina, the fact that I'm speaking, you're like somehow my speech connects to you, or is it you're listening? When you listening is like you're speaking. So if you want to tell me that my speech is somehow connecting to you, well, my speech has no Seudah, because I'm speaking where there's no Seudah. But if you hold that it goes by my listening, so if I'm listening in the place of my Seudah, so then I'm making kiddush in the place of my Seudah. Lom the Shavat. Maybe that could work. All right, I'm gonna say another Nakuda, but I gotta introduce something else first. So but that's one way to learn Tesis. Tesis has one more teretz. This is based on what he said before, and this is what Mati was saying, or maybe what Zev was saying. From one place to another place in the same house. When you're planning on going to the other room, then we say Yesh Kiddush B'Makom Seudah, so Asi Shaper. Then everything's okay. So there are two tanaim there. First of all, Makam L'Makam in one house, and you're planning on going there. That's what Taisus he tumbled on this Yidei Kiddush Yatsu. That was Taisus was dealing with. That's called the Shinei Makam if your das helps. Some hold that your das can hold even from if you were planning on going home and eating at home, maybe that would also work. But that clearly the Gemara seems to say not like Shmuel holds you're making Kiddush in shul and going home, even though you're planning on going home, that's not going to work. But maybe in the same house, from one space to another space, one room to another room in the same house, if you're planning on going there, that will not be called a Shini Makam. There, your intent helps, and therefore, from there could be the Orchim were and in the shul, and they went to the next room because they were planning on doing that. That'll be called Kiddush B'Makom Seudah.
That's like a Yesh Al Mi Lismoch or like a.
It's the second teretz.
Like.
There's two teretzim. One holds to that, and one doesn't hold to that. Tesis, I think, holds to that. We're going to see. Okay, so that was the Chavra eating in shul. Okay. They were one more time.
The shul is still make Kiddush, you know what he said though.
Yeah.
Once all these church and someone's gonna actually end up eating there.
Correct. Yeah, that's for sure. Yesterday we spoke about how you're able to make Kiddush if no one's eating in shul. So that we went through. Tesis holds it's a bracha l'atala, and Rabbeinu Yeni said it's for the people that are not going to make Kiddush. Okay. Or some they hold like the Rishonim hold that if it's a takana, you made a takana. The Chazal don't like it takana just because the time's not gone. Just because the time's gone. Okay. Now, where does this idea that you have to make Kiddush B'Makom Seudah come from? What's this idea? So let's take a look at the first Rashbam on the page. Avide Kiddush lo yatzu. Kiddush Barshin lo tamei lo kamei. Like the Gemara is going to explain the reason. Ain't Kiddush B'Makom Seudah. Kiddush needs to be in the place where you're eating. Why? D'chsiv, because the pasuk says v'karasa l'Shabbos einig. Literally means you should call Shabbos an einig, and we darshan that b'makom she'ata kaira l'Shabbos, in the place where you call Shabbos. What does that mean? You call Shabbos kalaymar kriya de Kiddush. When the place where you make Kiddush, sham tehei einig. That's where you should have einig. In the place where you make Kiddush, that's where you should have a Seudah. That's what the pasuk says. The karasel Shabbos einig, where you make Kiddush, that's where you should have your Seudah. Umedrashu. Inami, Tesis Rashbam says, it's a svara. Midik ba Kiddush al yayin. Kiddutan l'kaman. We're going to learn later on. The Gemara says, Zachareyu al hayayin. Zikaron should be on wine. Okay. So since Chazal were kaveya, that that Kiddush should be made on a cup of wine, mistama al hayayin shebishas Seudah hukva, then probably made it on a kind of wine that's connected to a Seudah, the chashiv, because that's a chashiv of wine. Stam drinking wine is not so chashiv, but when you have the wine by your Seudah, that's a chashiv wine. That's chashiv. So it almost sounds like in the Rashbam there are two. Is the point of Kiddush B'Makom Seudah to make your wine chashiv? Right, to make the wine chashiv, it should be by a place of your Seudah, because that makes a chashiv of wine. Or is it to make your Seudah a chashiv, a Shabbos to Seudah? The B'Makom kriya the Kiddush sham tehei einig. Right, so that's something to think of. Is the purpose of are we looking to make a chashiv of Seudah, or is it the point to make a chashiv of wine? Okay, maybe that'll play out again.
Could the end of the Rashbam be read differently? The stama ala yayin shebishas Seudah hukva d'chashiv. That having, it's not that the wine is chashiv. It's that the wine at the time of the Seudah is making the Seudah chashiv.
Mistama ala yayin shebishas Seudah hukba.
In mistama ala yayin, that the wine that you're having, the B'Shas Seudah, hukva the chashiv, that it's koveya that the Seudah being chashiv rather than the wine being chashiv al the Seudah.
I don't know. To me, it sounds like Mistama al yayin shebishas Seudah hukba the chashiv.
I may just be reading it wrong.
That's what I think. I think that's how you read it. Leave all the light switches, okay, and just hit the button. Now the other one. No, the other set of buttons. Now leave all those buttons up. Don't hit the button. Just hit the clock. There you go. Excellent. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Now, in Kiddush B'Makom Seudah, Rashbam says that if you don't have Kiddush, if you don't have a Seudah where you make Kiddush, you were not Yotze, you were Kiddush. Okay. Now, let's continue the Gemara. We're 5 lines down. But Shmuel Tamei, Shmuel says that if you make Kiddush in shul, you were not Yotze, your Seudah Shabbos. The Azu Shmuel Tamei, the Amr Shmuel in Kiddush B'Makom Seudah. Kiddush needs to be in a place where you eat. Now, Sover Mine, the Talmidim who heard this, they thought, Hani Mili, these words apply mibayis labayis. If you're going from one house to another house, but if you're just going from one room to another room in the same house, loy, then there wouldn't be a problem. That would be considered Makam Seudah. Right? Meaning, Shmuel said his halacha by making Kiddush in shul and going home. Okay, but if you're in your house and you're making Kiddush upstairs and you want to go downstairs, so that should be fine. That's what they figured. Amr lahu Rav Anan bar Tachlifa. The Rav Anan bar Tachlifa said to them, Zimnin Sagin, there were many times have a keimna kamei d'Shmuel. I was be by Shmuel. V'nachis me'igra la'ara. And he'd be on the roof, on his porch. And then he wanted to have the Seudah, and that was downstairs. He would go downstairs, Kaddish, and then he would make Kiddush. So you see, he didn't want to make Kiddush, even though he was upstairs. He would have preferred maybe to make Kiddush upstairs and then go downstairs and have the Seudah afterwards. He didn't do that. He would first go downstairs and make Kiddush downstairs. So you see, even in the same home, from Makam to Makam would be an issue. This is all assuming, at least according to the second pshat in Taisus, that you didn't have in mind, that you didn't make Kiddush one spot and have in mind to go down. Assuming that you didn't have that in mind, so then that's why Shmuel would not make Kiddush upstairs and then go downstairs. He would actually go downstairs and then make Kiddush. So Rav Anan bar Tachlifa was telling the Chevra that your diak was incorrect. But after Rav Huna suffered in Kiddush B'Makom Seudah. Now we're going to bring a few Amarayim that also hold in Kiddush B'Makom Seudah. Where do we see Rav Huna? The Rav Huna Kaddish. Rav Huna made Kiddush. The Ita'akra le'shraga. And then his candle went out. V'ailule le'monei le'beganane derabebrei to have a shraga. And then he took his meal to his son's, I guess was having a party of Shever Brachas. Le'beganane means the chuppah of his son Rabbah, to have a shraga, because there were candles there. The Kaddish, and then he made Kiddush again, the Tamidi, and he ate something. Alma, we see Kasaver, he must hold in Kiddush B'Makom Seudah. So he didn't want to eat where there was no light. That wouldn't be comfortable for him. So he left. He went to the place where there was light, and then he made Kiddush again. So you see, why did he make Kiddush again? Because since he didn't have a Seudah in the place where he made Kiddush originally, so he had to make Kiddush again to the new place where he went to have Kiddush B'Makom Seudah. Why not?
One, it's a completely different location. There's no DOS component here because he didn't plan to. It's not like,
That's exactly what it proves. I mean, he doesn't hold like Rav. According to Rav, he'd be fine. According to Rav, you don't need Kiddush B'Makom Seudah. You can say Kiddush in shul and go home and eat your Seudah. So we're proving to that Nakuda, that Rav holds in Kiddush B'Makom Seudah in the grand sense.
no.
Okay? Good point. V'af Rabba Savar in Kiddush B'Makom Seudah. Rabba also agrees that Kiddush is only B'Makom Seudah. The Amar Abaye, because Abaye said, Kiavina Beimar, when I was in Rabba's house, Kiava Mekadesh, when he would make Kiddush, Amar Alon, he would tell us, Ti'imu to eat something. Because Dilma, perhaps, Ada Azlaisul Ushbiza, when you go back to your hosts, Mit Akrul Chushraga, there won't be any lights. And you're not going to be making Kiddush there. And you're not going to be Yotze the Kiddush here because you didn't need anything. They ain't Kiddush, B'Makom Seudah, because there's no Kiddush unless you're having the Seudah here. So therefore, when Rabbi would have the Chevra over, he would tell them to eat something in order they could have Kiddush B'Makom Seudah. Good hara. There are Rishonim that say that if there's no candle, well, the two Nakudas here. He's saying that there's no candle, you're not going to make a Kiddush. So there are some Rishonim that learn, that in order to make Kiddush, you need to have lights. You need to have light. To make Kiddush without light, it is not correct. Others say no. He's just telling you practically. You're not going to end up making kiddush because it's dark. You're not going to want to eat. So you're just not going to make kiddush. You're going to go to sleep without making kiddush. And maybe you'll do it tomorrow.
Then that's how I B'Makom Seudah.
Why not?
That's just the reason I say to do it now is because later you're not gonna make it at all. You miss the kiddush.
Because you'll miss. Well, they heard kid. No, because they heard kiddush. So why is he telling me you're not going to be yotze?
Oh, I see. Okay, you're right.
Right? So he's saying that you are gonna you'll even if you'll eat at home, or if you either way, if you're gonna eat or not eat at home, you're not gonna be yotze the kiddush because you didn't have a Seudah here.
Seudah by him is just anything.
Oh, so what do you have to eat to be yotze Kiddush B'Makom Seudah? What kind of Seudah do you? He said te'imu midi. It sounds like you just have a I don't know, a te'imu, a little a tam of something. So tesis te'imu midi. Last tesis in the skinny lines. Te'imu midi. Nira, it appears the hainu te'imas lechem. Even though it uses the word ta'imu, which sounds like this, take a taste, it means bread. What? Come on, that's a stretch. And he proves it. Because I'm going to begin with the Shavuos. Because the Amri Inshi, people will say, Nitamidi, nu, go eat something. For Uzli, then they go, but Achli Vashas, and they have a whole meal. So the fact that he said Ti'imu is not a riot, it means just a taste. That can mean that you're actually eating something. Now, the Imayil Mini Targima Lahashlam Gudim Sudas Shabbos. Can you use Mini Targima, which is either mezainas or meat, things like that, like it would help you on sukkahs. Hainu dafka besu'udah shlishis. That's only for su'udah shlishis that you can use mini targima. Avaloi besu'udas arvis v'shachris. Shem ikar covered Shabbos. So Teisa's opinion is a kula and a chumrah. A chumrah. He says that su'udah requires lechem, and not only is that for not only is he referring to your actual sudas of Shabbos, but even if you want to be yotze kiddush, you need to have lechem to be yotze kiddush B'Makom Seudah. But he does say that for shalosh shudas you can be mekel with minei targima. Okay, that's Teisa's opinion. There's another opinion, I'm slipping my mind too. The Gaonim are brought down as holding that you could use wine for Kiddush B'Makom Seudah. Having wine is enough. And now there's a machlokes if that just means the kos that you drink for Kiddush, or having another cup of wine for Kiddush B'Makom Seudah. And
I understand. We didn't think that Seudah, that you needed to have a Seudah on Shabbos. Now he's specific on what you need to eat for the Seudah.
where do you say you don't need a Seudah?
You mentioned that on Shabbos you don't even have a Seudah.
No. He was saying he holds that it's not a mitzvah. We were just saying before that he doesn't call the Seudah Shabbos a Seudah's mitzvah that you could be matir eating in shul for, even though other mitzvahs you could do, because it's just the kiyum of a mitzvah of einig. It's not the actual mitzvah of eating. It's just the kiyum of einig. That's one point. No, but he holds that to be yaitzer that. But to have a Seudah, you need to have a Seudah on Yantif, on Shabbos. You need a Seudah that needs to be lechem. There's a chiyuv. I mean, it's not a mitzvah. It's a chiyuv. I hear your point. It's a fair point. It's a fair point. Yeah. It is. It's a fair point. I like the point. It's a good point. Mati's point is that at Kam, you're telling me that you're obligated to do something. You have to eat a Seudah. So why isn't that a mitzvah? It's a chiyuv to have a Seudah, which is only a kiyum of the mitzvah. It's not a mitzvah itself. That's Mati's saying that's not such a great word. Okay, I hear. The Rishonim hold the Gaonim hold that you could use yayin, and if you hold yayin, assumably they assume yayin. Then if you could use yayin, then you could for sure use mezainis. Would work for meaning the Gaonim hold you could use yayin, for sure you could hold that mezainis would also work. That's what most of us are semech on when you eat at a kiddush in shul. That's called a Seudah. When you have mezainis, you're having your Seudah.
That's a second Seudah?
Oh,
Go home and eat,
so no, not really, because it's like a kula. We're being semech on the Gaonim that's enough for Kiddush B'Makom Seudah to make it that our Kiddush is not a bracha l'vatala, or that we can eat. But we want to be machmir for Tosfos that a Seudah Shabbos needs lachem. But I will tell you that there is an Indian where if you're having mezainis, to have two mezainis. To at least you don't have to eat both, but to have lechem mishnah on your mezainis. Two crackers. Yeah.
Some people take you sitting down and having a plate of chon and kogo and chicken. What?
Yeah, that is also true. You probably should, but then the women will get upset. If you start washing, that's all over. So that's a show. But where your yaitz and your kiddush, if kiddush needs to be B'Makom Seudah, so where your yaitz kiddush if you didn't have a Seudah. That's the Rashbam says the ink.
I guess you're saying, all those places you're saying live up to, or even
Correct.
the story goes that he tells them to do it now, because later he won't be able to.
But take a look at the second Rashbam on the page. In Kiddush B'Makom Seudah. Dim Kiddush v'loy sa'ad ba'is ha'makam la'yatzi yedei Kiddush. You didn't fulfill your mitzvah of Kiddush, so if you didn't fulfill Kiddush, then you can't eat. You didn't say Kiddush. Kiddush requires the Seudah. So that's why we do that. One other shita is to know b'shas atchak you could be saying there's a shul gibarim that brings that you could use. He says megadim, which the Mishabura seems to understand as peiros. You can be yetzer with fruit. So b'shas atchak you could be yetzer Kiddush B'Makom Seudah with fruit. For Kiddush B'Makom Seudah. Yeah.
What's the Gemara Sukkah case? Those his references.
That's talking about there's a shita of Rabbi Eliezer who holds you have to have 14 sudas on sukkahs, and then the Gemara says if you missed one, you can make it up with mini tergima. So you could say this seems like there you can. Okay.
Anything that you'd make a leisha for?
No, it's different nakuda there.
Make a
It's a
leisha
different. It's a different. The nakuda is that he always have to have 14 sudas, and if you missed one, so the Gemara says you have to be mashal it. So Gemara's like, hey, you're supposed to be mashal in the suda. It says you can mashal with mini tergima. Okay.
So if you don't have the government side of Kiddush, it's a bracha batala.
If you don't eat something like if you don't have no, it's not a bracha atala, but because you drink. I mean, you ate and drink, but I don't know if it's a bracha. I mean, for
very human Kiddush doesn't have the resemblance with it.
and he can't eat because he wasn't yetzer kiddush. That's more the issue Shabbos morning.
They can't eat.
You can't eat before kiddush. You're not allowed to eat before you make kiddush.
And it's not Kiddush unless it's.
And it's not kiddush unless it's B'Makom Seudah.
You hear the Kiddush, and then you eat something.
Can't go straight for the hair. You gotta go.
Or you have to have a significant amount of wine or
Wine. Yeah, I don't know if Chumar Medina works. Maybe it does. I don't know. So what else I want to say here? Tastes.
like when that's like what happens on Pesach when people
Okay. Good. Let's do one more. What happened? And what else?
Right. It has to mean that you can't eat, you drink it, you Kiddush again.
If you didn't have a Seudah,
Yeah.
and it is possible to learn. I apologize. There's a tshuva from Rav Moshe that I didn't have a chance to look at again. And maybe he says something to the effect of, if you hold, 1 second. If the point of Kiddush B'Makom Seudah is to give chashivas to your Seudah, I remember we had 2 ways to go, right? So if the Nakuda is that it's giving, I forgot how I said it. But there's something like that. The Kiddush needs to be B'Makom Seudah, but even if it's not, I don't remember. It's something about being a matir. The Kiddush could be a matir and achil even without this. I don't remember exactly. I don't know. But we'll take a look at it and we'll discuss it at some other time. Okay, let's go weiter here. Correct the Gemara. You want to tell me now that Abaye paskin like Shmuel that ain't Kiddush of B'Makom Seudah? Correct the Gemara. Amar Abaye. Abaye said the following: Kol mili demar have a ovid kirav. Everything of Rabba would do everything like Rav. Okay, Abaye is saying that Mar is referring to Rabba. his Rebbe. Rabba did everything like Rav, lebar mehani tlas, except for three things the other Shmuel that he did like Shmuel. Number one, matir mi beged lebeged. He would take off tzitzis from one beged to put them onto another beged. If he didn't have enough strands, so he would take off from one beged and put them on another beged. Number two, he held madlikin miner lener. On Hanukkah, you don't need a shamish. You could light one Hanukkah candle to the next Hanukkah candle. And number three, v'halacha kribshim begreira. When it comes to dragging a bench, meaning a davar she'ena mischaven on Shabbos, the Tanya of Shimon Eimer, geir adam mita kisa v'savsel b'Shabbos, you're allowed to drag a bench, a bed, a seat, or a bench on Shabbos in the dirt, ubevad, as long as as long as you're not trying to dig a ditch, and it's not heavy that it will for sure dig a ditch. So this is a shaila in Hilchah Shabbos of Kol Davar She'eino Mischaven. If I do an act that has two possible outcomes, one I want to happen and one I don't care about, that's called the Davar She'eino Mischaven. So as long as the other one is for sure not going to happen, Reb Shimon holds that it's mutter to do, and Shmuel paskins like that. Okay, so the kasha is that Abai, you said you do everything, that Rabba does everything like Rav except for these three. So then why are you paskining like Shmuel when it comes to Kiddush B'Makom Seudah? That's not one of the three. Answers the Gemara, Kechomrei de Rav hava avid, Kekulei de Rav loy hava avid. He would do like the chumras of Rav, but he would not do like the chumras of Rav. He wouldn't do like the kulas of Rav. Okay. Frekt to Rashbam, 1 second. Everybody knows that if you do like if you go into the Gemara talks about a machlekes beisham and beisilol. Now not in the game anymore, but back in the day, if you pick the kulas, if you pick the kulas of both shitas, you're a rasha. You pick the chumras of both, you're a shaita. Right? So what's he doing? He's only picking the chumras, not the kulas. You can't do that. That's the kasha Rashbam asks, and he answers that that's only if they're a tarti desasri. If you're doing two chumras that contradict each other, so then that would be a problematic. But if they have nothing to do with each other, you picked the hero, you wanted to do the chumras of Rav, and they don't it's not like a kula that's going to end up being a chumra. So if it's just a chumra, so then you could do that. So that's what he was doing. So he would paskin like Rav l'chumra, but not like Rav l'kula. Great. Lemaisa, when it comes to Kiddush B'Makom Seudah, we paskin like Shmuel. Even though generally the halacha is Rav and Shmuel, the halacha follows Rav b'Isurei. And furthermore, we're going to see in a moment, Rabbi Yochanan also paskins that you don't have to have Kiddush. You could have Kiddush Shaloi B'Makom Seudah. But over here, that's what the Gemara brought here. We have Abaya, we have Rav Huna, we have somebody else who did like Shmuel. That was the later Amoraim passing like Shmuel. So the halacha follows Shmuel. Okay. Reb Yochanan. The Gemara says, Reb Yochanan Amar, Af Yidayayin Nami Yatsu. You also fulfill the mitzvah. You also fulfilled Yayin, meaning he holds. If you go home now, you don't have to make a new B'Rei Pri Hagafen. He holds there's no Shinei Makom. Now I shouldn't say he doesn't hold of Shinei Makom, but he holds since you were planning on going home, because you were make Kiddush, so you hold you don't need Kiddush B'Makom Seudah, and you were planning on leaving, so you weren't Mesiach Das. You're all making Kiddush to go eat. So you're not. There's no Hesach Hadas. You weren't planning. You were planning on drinking more wine. So he holds Afi de Yayin Namiyat. So you also do. You do not have to make a B'Rei Pri Hagafen when you go home. V'az Rabbi Yochanan l'Tamein. This is Rabbi Yochanan going l'Shitosai. The Amar of Chanan bar Abai. Amar of Pedas. Amar of Yochanan. Echad Shino Yayin. Whether you have a change of wine, the Echad Shino Makam, or whether you have a change of place, Ein Sarach Levarach, you don't have to make another bracha. Now, what does that mean, Shinu Yayin? What bracha is he talking about when you're making a Shinu Yayin? So he's saying you don't have to, if you change, let's say you're drinking one wine, and then someone brings you a new bottle of wine, you don't have to make another B'Rei Pri Hagafen. Okay, that's great. But you know what you may have to make? Hatov v'hametiv. Taisus and Rashbam point out that is correct. If they bring you a new barrel of wine, you may not have to make a bracha of hatov of Biragafen, but you do have to make hatov v'hametiv. Oh, so we have three shitas here. In when would you make hatov v'hametiv? The Rashbam says it's only if your second one is going to be better. If it's meshubach min harishon, if it's if your second one is better, then you're going to make a hatov v'hametiv. The Tosfos brings, as long as it's good and not terrible, even if it's not as good as the first bottle you drink, but as long as it's not bad, you could still make a hatov v'hametiv, because he says you make a hatov v'hametiv not on the quality but on the quantity, because you have so much of it. You can make a hatov v'hametiv is on the quantity of wine that you have, not on the quality of wine that you have. And the Rambam holds you can make a hatov v'hametiv on any, as long as it's a different type of wine. If it went better, if it was went from red to white, if it went to a darker wine, if it changed the type of wine, you can make a hatov v'hametiv. Now, why is it that we only make a hatov v'hametiv on wine? Why wouldn't you make a hatov v'hametiv if you have more bread? If you have a nice you bring out a good sourdough, or you bring out a nice, a sweet challah. You bring a different challah. Why don't you make a hatov v'hametiv? So if you look at the bottom last line in Tosfos, or the second to last line on Tosfos, and the page here, towards the end of the line, v'davka b'yayin mivarkin. It's specifically on wine that we make the bracha of hatov v'hametiv. Because when was the original bracha of hatov v'hametiv instituted? You remember that? That was for the Harugei Beitar that were nitan l'kvura. Harugei Beitar was after the Bar Kokhba revolt. They were was destroyed. It was a terrible destruction. They say it was worse than the Churban, and the people be buried. And when finally they got permission to bury the dead, a great miracle occurred that the corpses had not rotted. So they instituted the bracha of hatov v'hametiv. In Benchik. It was instituted originally as a short bracha, hatov v'hametiv. And for Berch Samazin, they lengthened it. So Tosfos uses that svar, and he says, Lefisha zivlu karmeyan b'dameyan shel Yisrael, because by Beitar they were using the blood of the Jews to fertilize their fields. And we made a bracha of hatov shlei hisrichu v'hametiv shenitin l'kvura. And being that the wine is similar in color to blood, that is why the bracha was instituted over wine. That's a little interesting, cryptic to me, but that's the idea here. One other nakud about hatov v'hametiv is that it's only said, before that says that you don't say it if you're drinking alone. You only make the bracha drinking with somebody else. In general, the bracha hatov v'hametiv is made. The reason for that is because the bracha means hatov for me and meitiv for others. So bracha hatov v'hametiv is if you wouldn't make the bracha hatov v'hametiv. In general, we also, there are other times you say the bracha hatov v'hametiv. If you get something new that you're very excited about, so you make a bracha shachianu. If you get something that's new that is not just for you but for many people to benefit from, then you make the bracha of hatov v'hametiv. So, for instance, if you buy, I don't know, if you're very excited, you get like a new dining room set or something like that. That's very exciting. That's for many people, for the family to enjoy. You would make the bracha hatov v'hametiv over a shachianu. Okay, that does it for us. One second, I'm not going to answer Lamaisa questions on the video. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow.
Lemaisa for Tov v'hametiv doesn't have to